Here I am within the Insights console. I'm using a web browser. I went to cloud.redhat.com and went to Insights. We have a fairly new feature here on the left side, which says Register Systems. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Register Systems button. And what this is going to do is give this options for you to tell Insights how you like to manage your systems. Is this through a public cloud? And if so, you select an operating system, and then it's going to give you instructions on how to connect. Or if you're using it through Red Hat Satellite, Satellite has built right into it an Ansible role that can be used to connect your systems registered to Satellite to Insights. Same thing with Puppet. We have a Puppet module available. But what I'm going to actually show you is the manual method through Subscription Manager. You tell it whether it's a RHEL 8 system or a RHEL 6 or 7 system. The big difference here is with RHEL 8 systems, unless you're using minimal, the Insights client is already installed. So it's just a single step. For a RHEL 6 or 7, I happen to have a RHEL 7 client. It's 2 steps here. It's yum install the Insights client, and then we're going to register. If you want to use Puppet or if you want to use Ansible, there are modules and playbooks available as well. I'm going to show you the manual method, and as mentioned, it's super simple. So I'm going to switch over real quick here to a system that I have. Yum install Insights client. And what this is going to do for us is just reach out. It's included in the base RHEL repo. It's going to make sure we have everything we need, and it's going to go ahead and install that Insights client. This is all versions of RHEL 6.4 and above. And again, if you have RHEL 8, you don't have to do this step. It's already pre-installed for you unless you're using that minimal version. Once you have that client installed, and this client is it's a daemon, it kicks off only once a day via a systemd process. It's not something that's sitting in the background running all the time. So once you have that, we need to do the register command, and this is going to register the hosts with Insights. If you're using a RHEL 8 system, this is the only thing you have to do, is Insights client -- register. So this is going to reach out to the system itself, to Insights, and it's going to go ahead and do the registration, and it's going to run our first time collection and send that on to Insights. From this point forward, Insights again will run once a day. It's a systemd process. If you want to change the timing, you're welcome to. You can change it to a cron job and kick it off once a day per your schedule. So we have completed this process. We have installed Insights, and we've gone ahead and done the registration. So now if I go back to Insights, I'm going to click on my inventory. What I should see here is that system is already registered. This does show up as the host name here from AWS, and I've created it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a display name of SQL 02, just to make this easier for me to find it. I like to use the more friendly host names in my environment. So I've given it a more customized name, and this is the same name I'll use when creating an Ansible playbook. So I've added this to my inventory. I've got a lot of systems within this inventory for Insights already. It did register a number of tags as well. It imported a number of those from Satellite. And I'm going to start by returning to the Insights dashboard. So the Insights dashboard here is going to show me a brief summary of all of the systems that are registered to Insights. And if you went and registered a lot of systems, maybe I just did that registration operation at scale and I registered 10, 25, 50, 100 systems to Insights, there could potentially be a lot of data here showing just all of a sudden. So the first place to begin here, as Rob mentioned to you earlier, is let's begin with some of these high criticality things. Advisor has this concept of incidents. With Advisor, generally speaking, we're hoping to tell you about proactive things that have not yet impacted your environment, but will soon. Incidents are something that are currently impacting your environment. So we can go ahead and look at the incidents, or if you had like critical issues listed here. Fortunately, I've taken care of all the critical issues. I don't have any going on. But if I had some critical issues, I would want to look at those pretty quickly as well. So I'm going to start by looking at my incidents. All right. Sorry about that. I must have had a bad cookie that got in there and caused me some problems. So I went back in incognito mode. I'm back looking at my incidents that have happened for me. And you can see this is giving us information such as, hey, I've got some end of life systems actually out here. If I expand this information, it's going to give me a little bit, hey, this is pretty critical. I get systems out there running end of life software, 18 systems throughout my environment. And if I click into the incident itself, it's going to tell me that this could be Ceph, this could be OpenShift, this could be Satellite 5 or Satellite 6, or even Red Hat virtualization. So if you go through this date, you can see a number of these boxes. These are all my systems that are running end of life software. So that's something that is affecting those systems right now, and I need to take care of it pretty quickly. I've also got issues like this daily cron job for RHSMD has problems due to a known bug in Subscription Manager. So any of these issues are actively affecting my environment right now. If I wanted to fix this on one of my systems, I could go into the system itself, and it's going to tell me step by step what I need to do to fix this issue. And if I want to create an Ansible playbook, I can go ahead and do that just by creating the checkbox, then clicking remediate and walking through the process of creating a remediation playbook. So we make it really easy for you to go ahead, find these issues, and address them through insights. Now I'm going to go on to the topics view, because the host that I added right in the beginning of the demo here is a SQL Server on AWS host. So I'm going to start by clicking on Microsoft SQL Server. And here's the list of all of my recommendations that affect SQL. I've got a number of them out here, and what we essentially did is built these recommendations based off of Microsoft best practices for SQL Server running on RHEL. So there's a number of them out here, such as the tune profiles isn't set correctly, or you don't have the virtual address space of the kernel settings. But there's a really easy one here where, I've got a couple systems that have SQL Server enabled, but they're not actually running. They haven't actually kicked on for me. So I can select one or both of these systems. I can click this remediate button, and I can go ahead and do a playbook called AWS SQL on. So all this is really going to do for us is start the Microsoft SQL Server service. So it's a really, really simple example here. But if this was a cluster that was down or something like that, you'd want to investigate why it was down. But we can go ahead and download this playbook. It's going to open up for us in a new page here. And you can see all this playbook does. SQL Server is enabled but not running. What are we going to do? We're going to start the SQL Server service, and we're going to do it on each of these hosts. And as soon as it's done, what it's going to do is run insights again. So if you run a remediation plan like this, after it's done doing the job, it runs insights again, so it clears any errors that are out there. So if you go ahead and fix something through insights, we run insights again to let it know that we fixed the issue, and that should hopefully clear it up in the UI. All right. If you happen to have, in addition to insights is included with your Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription, so it's part of that subscription that you already have. If you also have Red Hat Smart Management, that's an additional subscription. That one includes Satellite as well as Cloud Connector. If you have that set up and configured, it's going to show an additional button for you that I have here, which is Execute Playbook. If you only have RHEL, you don't have Smart Management at all, you're not going to see this button. Or if you have RHEL and Smart Management, but you haven't configured Cloud Connector, you'll see the button, but it'll be grayed out. You won't be able to use it. In my case, I have systems connected through satellite. I happen to have both systems connected through a satellite. So what it's telling me is I can go ahead and fix these two systems right now just by clicking that Execute Playbook button. That's going to go ahead and take that playbook. It's going to send it on through my satellite. If my hosts are connected to capsules, it'll send it on through the capsules, and then it's going to run that playbook using Ansible remote execution on the hosts. So if I go in here and if I view, I click the satellite, what we can actually see is this running on the host. So it's already kicked off on this particular system here. So you can see it. We started SQL service. It hasn't quite kicked off on SQL 02 yet. And frankly, this one, it did fail. I was going to say it may fail because I just connected it. It hasn't had time to sync with the satellite yet. It's a background process that failed because of the demo. the way I did the demo. But SQL 01 was already up and running, so it has run the service, it started it up, we ran insights again. So if I go back into Advisor, I go back to that particular recommendation, it should only show me the one system now is down. And that will automatically be taken care of once I do the sync process with Cloud Connector again. It runs about every hour, and because I just connected this system, it hasn't updated the satellite inventory. So it knows it exists because I've had it previously registered, and that's why it showed, but it failed. That's all part of the magic of demo. So that's a quick look at taking an incident, creating a playbook, and resolving it through Smart Management and the Cloud Connector. If you have incidents like that you take care of, you want to go ahead, you want to move on to vulnerability. The vulnerability service down here shows all the common vulnerabilities and exposures that affect all of the systems registered to Insights. So you may want to start with looking at CVEs, especially these high value ones. We use the common vulnerability scoring system. So I've got 260 CVEs that are between an 8.0 and a 10. So we may want to start there. Or it may be that you're interested in a specific system, like that one that I just added, that SQL 02 system. So I'm gonna click up my satellite real quick, and I'm gonna go ahead and have that run. So the next time satellite runs a job, it should let us go ahead and fix things on SQL 02. So for the CVEs that we have here, it's going to show you the most recent one first. It's always up to date. It's reading in the CVEs that are affecting the systems. I have one here. This is the top one that affects 23 systems. It's a flaw in Ansible engine. If we want to see more details, we click right on that vulnerability. We've got a number of systems here. And if we wanted to fix this CVE on all systems, we could easily do it. If we want to export this out and say, hey, security team, you guys wanted to know how many systems were impacted? Well, it's 23 systems, and I can export that list of systems that are impacted out to a CSV or a JSON. And it's WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. So if you adjust this or filter it out or only look at certain names when you do that export, it respects the view that you have on screen. With CVEs, you can also set a business risk. So we, Red Hat, say this is an important severity due to information in the CVE database, due to the flaw, due to our experience working with other customers. But we could allow you to go in here and edit the business risk as well, where you could say, hey, for this one, we heavily rely on Ansible engine, we have to fix this, or this flaw is present in prod, we need to take advantage of it. You can go ahead and set your business risk as well as a justification. You can also set a status. So you can go through here and say my status is in review. I'm starting the process of reviewing the CVE. We know we have to fix it, but we got to take it through change control, and we got to see when we can fit it into a maintenance window. Or maybe for similar reasons, it's on hold, scheduled for a patch, resolved, or hey, we've just decided that we're just going to accept this risk. So you can set this to in review. You can put in a justification and you can click save. So now I've set my business risk as well as my status. And I want to go ahead and see what it's going to take for me to fix this. So I'm just going to say on all 23 systems, click remediate. I missed the CVE name. Hang on. Click remediate. I'm just going to give it the CVE name. The fix here is to upgrade these packages. It does require a reboot, and you can turn auto reboot on or off. 23 systems, and this is a vulnerability. So we can go ahead, we can take a look at this particular vulnerability here, and we can, just like you saw before, download that playbook. We can take a look at what the fix is. Here's the list of vulnerable package that we're updating. And then we can take this playbook, send it through our change control process. You might need to modify it. You might want to add additional systems that aren't connected to Insights, but this is a fantastic starting point for you and gives you really a head start on fixing vulnerabilities that are present in your environment. You can also see this from the systems view, where you can go into something like that SQL host that I just added here, SQL 02. You can see all CVEs that affect a particular system. This one has 25 total CVEs. And again, if you want to export that out to CSV or JSON, you can do it. If you want to fix every CVE that affects the system, you can do it. It makes it super simple through Insights. Both the advisor and the vulnerability service also have this concept of an executive report. It's a PDF that you can download and you can share with your teams, and that's going to give you a look at the top 3 vulnerabilities by risk as well as by how prevalent it is throughout your environment. So you're going to hit the ones that are the most common as well as the ones that are most critical. You have the same kind of executive report on the advisor side. Other services here that are really interesting, we get a lot of feedback from our drift service. Our drift service lets you create a baseline. So I have one here for AWS security systems. You create this baseline based off of facts that are collected by Insights, things like what's your architecture, what's your BIOS release date, what's your vendor, and then you can perform a comparison of the baseline against systems. So I expect my security systems to look like this baseline. Then I can say I have these systems here, SECO 1, SECO 3, click submit, and this is going to show me a comparison to that baseline itself. That default view is going to show me everything, whether it's the same, different, or incomplete, but you can customize this. I'm going to remove the same and incomplete so I can just focus on what's different. And I'm also going to set that baseline as a reference point because I expect it to look like that baseline. And here's all the places where we have differences. If I look at my system memory, SECO 1 has got half the memory roughly. So maybe I've got a hardware problem here. Maybe a DIMM died, or maybe it was just created at an older time when I was putting less RAM into a system. We can also look out things like install packages so we can see if a system's been patched. And recently we've added into Insights this concept of historical profiles. So we can go into a system and say, within the last 7 days, what's changed? So if I remove my baseline, I'm going to look at my SECO 3 system, and you can see back here from a couple days ago, again, it's just 7 days. I'm going to compare to 7 days ago on SECO 3, and let's see if there's any differences. I'm going to go ahead and get SECO 1 out of this view as well. So here's all my differences in the last 7 days. So from September 18th to now, maybe I've had a system that's, started misbehaving, or it used to work perfectly fine and now we're having issues. You can actually do a quick comparison here and say within the last week, what changed in this environment. Looks like I had a minor kernel upgrade kick off here, and that's caused some, potentially some challenges for this host. And just like before, any of these comparisons, you can download them. It's, again, what you see is what you get. So I just exported that out to a CSV, and I can take that and share that with other folks in my team. You can also just click the URL here in the web browser and share that with teammates if they're on the same account. So real quickly, a couple other services we haven't talked about. We've got the patch service. The patch is going to tell you very quickly, either by advisories or by systems, patches that are impacted by a host. I know we've got had a couple questions on this earlier in the chat. The patch service within Insights is super simple as compared to something like Satellite that's really complex and has like lifecycle views and content views. So this is just telling you, is an advisory applicable to a host? And you can do that by systems or by advisories. So if I just search real quick, I've got a RHBA out here, a bug that affects a ton of systems in my environment. You can also see this by the systems view. So earlier, that SQL host I added has got 20 bugs and 33 security advisories that need fixed. Just like all the others, you can export this out. Policy service allows you to create your own custom policy. These are things like, hey, make sure the firewall is enabled on all my systems, or make sure if I'm using the public cloud, I have a owner tag set. And then finally, the compliance service up here allows you to do compliance to industry compliance standards such as DISA-STIG, PCI, HIPAA, all of those are listed here. This does leverage OpenSCAP and requires a little bit of additional setup. And then Subscription Watch, while it's not part of Insights itself, Subscription Watch is a fantastic service that we have that will let you know about your subscription utilization across all of your RHEL or even OpenShift accounts. And this will give you an idea of where your subscription utilization is per day compared to what you've actually purchased. So I've got a developer environment, my bar is really high.
but this is a really easy and quick way to look at what is being consumed in your environment. Executive reports that are built into Insights itself. We have one for Advisor today and one for the Vulnerability Service. As mentioned, those showcase for you the real highlights of the big things we're finding in Advisor, such as your recommendations by severity, by category, and your top 3 recommendations in your infrastructure. That's what we show for Advisor. And then on the vulnerability side, we show the CVEs by severity and by published time frame, and then the top 3 hits within the infrastructure itself and a summary of each of those. So that was one of the questions that came up in the chat. I just figure that's easier to do visually than anything else.